This is TWiT.
One of the things that tends to kick off the new year is a big old tech conference where people come together and they launch new products, or in some cases it's vaporware, products that aren't actually going to ship. And not last year, but the year before was the last time that people gathered in person for CES, formerly the Consumer Electronics Show, now just known as CES. This year, CES decided to do it in person again, but many groups kind of said, hey, we're not going to do that. And so CES is a strange beast this year. Despite that, this is still the time that companies go about announcing new stuff and showing off new stuff. And so joining us today to talk about new stuff is Ian Sherr of CNET. Welcome back to the show, Ian.
How you doing?
Oh, peachy keen. How are you?
I'm doing okay. And I am in Maryland, not Las Vegas. So I am one of those people who watch CES from afar. It was quite an interesting experience.
I am really glad to hear that you are watching CES from afar, that you're not there. I saw a video on Twitter of folks going into the main area of CES as the doors opened, as the gate opened, and it was just like giving me all kinds of sweat and anxiety looking at all of those people gathered together, masked, but still quite terrifying. In any case, you and the CNET team have been keeping an eye on CES, and I was hoping that we could start with kind of, for folks who aren't familiar with CES, can you talk about sort of the categories that get covered here? Because this is not a time when, say, Google is showing off its new hardware. It has an event for that. Apple is not showing off new hardware. It has its own event for that. So what are the kind of tech categories that can get announcements at this kind of event?
Well, it depends on what year it is, but generally speaking, this is what it sounds like, consumer electronics, and that is an extremely broad category. It can be cameras. Typically, it's a lot more TVs. You could see washing machines, stuff for your home. One of the things that we've seen a lot of is health technology lately, and that was even before the pandemic. But I think what's been really interesting is that the car industry has kind of started slowly making their way to Vegas every year. And, there's a joke that the auto show is now actually in Vegas. So it's all sorts of kind of all over the map, which is part of what's fun about it, is that it's not these specific things like the new iPhone or the new iPad or the new Pixel device. Like, those are cool events. We know what they're for. But this is just how is technology kind of seeping into our lives in all these different ways?
Absolutely. So then let's get into it a little bit because, of course, this is an ongoing process. But we did see some kind of big announcements from big companies. What are some of the what do we want to go with? The headline items that may have been announced this year, or headline announcements that may have taken place?
Well, probably the biggest headline item involves your head. It's stuff to put on your glasses, actually. And the whole idea is that we're seeing a lot of companies pushing out VR, AR, MR, whatever, MX. There are all these different letters now, but these devices who are either designed to make you feel enveloped in a digital world, right, like Oculus does, or stuff that overlays computer stuff on the real world, like Pokemon Go, but for your glasses. And it's really cool to see it. We're seeing so many companies trying to come up with ideas for this, particularly TCL, for example, who, by the way, we at CNET give one of the best bang for their buck reviews when it comes to their TVs. They announced a pair of glasses that got quite a bit of attention, and they're not like VR goggles, right? They're not meant to play video games with per se. They're really just designed to be a 140-inch screen equivalent when you put them on, and you're able to like watch an IMAX movie and really enjoy it. So that's pretty cool. And they're not the only people doing that, but they got a lot of attention for it. The other one was Sony. They announced PSVR 2. So if you know about the PlayStation VR, that was a pretty interesting device, right? Much more mainstream than all the other VR devices out there, a lot cheaper than all the other devices out there. And now they've announced some of the features of the new one, which has a lot of us scratching our heads wondering if it's going to be more expensive or if Sony has found a way to make it much more affordable for all these high-end features. So it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned health being kind of a big banner item. Is there any new kind of health technology that's taking place? Are we just seeing kind of more wearables from different companies? Is this, a year of sleep, a year of body temperature tracking? What are kind of some of the trends in health and tech this year?
I think I could use a year of sleep. It's interesting. I think that what's generally been going on is, as you point out, sensors are going everywhere, right? They're becoming really just a part of all sorts of parts of our lives. And so we are seeing all sorts of stuff. There are sensors in T-shirts for people who are athletic, right? So that they don't have to wear a watch or whatever else, or they have a special type of sensor. They're doing sensors that are built into headphones, sensors built into eyeglasses, all that type of stuff. And also, yes, into a bed. And so it hasn't really congealed anywhere. It seems to be all over the place. But part of it, I think, honestly, is because what has kind of come together are the different companies that are creating software for it, right? Apple, Google, the people who actually make the software that allows you to interpret all of this data, that is where you're using it. And then what these people are doing is building all these sensors that plug into it, right? Apple Health, Google Health, all that type of stuff. So that's really interesting in and of itself.
Nice. Now, CES it tends to be a time for you to walk in and see these gigantic televisions that none of us will ever be able to purchase. But aside from those gigantic TVs, it is also a time whenever we kind of hear about new methods of, I can remember learning about quantum dot technology at CES one year. What are we looking at in terms of display technologies this year? And will my TV be, 4D instead of the standard 2D I have right now?
It's interesting, actually. The quantum dot is making a comeback. And a lot of it is because of this new technology called QD OLED. So the idea behind it essentially is to take the best of both worlds, right? The quantum dots and OLED technology, which if you don't know all of the specifics of it, it takes more than a couple of seconds to describe. So I just say, go to CNET and we have a great story breaking it all down. But what it comes down to is that the TVs that they've been able to create, and specifically Samsung and Sony, are apparently able to be much brighter and have much better color, much richer color in them because they're combining these two technologies. It's a really fascinating idea. Of course, as you point out, probably way more than any of us will ever spend on a TV. But it wasn't that long ago that the technology that's in my TV right now was on the show floor at CES and very expensive. And now it's affordable for most people. So eventually this stuff, 3-4 years is going to become a normal thing. And that's really exciting if indeed it does come true. We haven't gotten to test it yet, but we did get to look at it and it looked really nifty.
Nice. And some of these things kind of come together. You've got these televisions that are offering new technology. You've got AR, VR. So all of that comes together in one place, which is gaming. What are we looking at? What are we seeing regarding gaming at CES this year?
A lot of the conversation around gaming was around game streaming, which is something that I feel like I've been covering since the Stone Age. It's been something that has been publicly talked about since 2010. And it makes sense, right? The idea of essentially Netflix for gaming, right? Why do I buy an expensive, bulky, loud, hot computer or console and sit it next to my screen instead of just connecting to the internet and server somewhere else that's hot and bulky and does all that stuff, and I just pay for use of it? And what's happening now is that Samsung in particular is building in technology called the Gaming Hub into their televisions. And that is going to be working with all the different streaming services. NVIDIA is one of them, which, by the way, NVIDIA announced new chips for all the different desktops that they sell and laptops, AMD as well, and Intel. Those are pretty typical announcements for CES, but they did do that. And also, I think what's going on is that there's kind of a conversation around how we're getting to a point where this technology, which is actually very hard to do and very expensive, game streaming, might actually become affordable and doable. which would be very interesting, right? And part of the kind of future we've all been promised but never came about. So I'm curious to see.
Yes, me too. There's a lot of stuff happening at CES this year. Whether people are there in person or not, CNET has a bunch of coverage and continues to keep that updated. So, of course, folks can head to cnet.com to learn more. But if folks want to follow you online and stay up on your work, where do they go to do so?
I try to keep it simple. I'm at Ian Sherr anywhere you look, and it's just spelled my name, IANSHERR.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Take care.